Welcome in. Latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. Go by SEC Mike on the Twitters, and there he is, our great friend Stephen Lassan, the senior editor over at Athlon Sports. Stephen, what's up, brother?
Hey, Mike, it's good to talk to you. What another crazy weekend around the SEC. Sunday came. We had another coach fired. We got some playoff rankings coming up this week. We'll try not to rage too much about YouTube and ESPN's nonsense and talk about some actual games this weekend, right?
That's literally what Stephen and I complained about for 15 minutes before hopping on here. This is a nightmare. That is YouTube TV and the ESPN app and Hulu TV. None of it works. I thankfully, Stephen, I have an antenna. It's about the only way to watch the games these days. You know what?
Man, the good old antenna, right? You can't go wrong. No disputes about the carriage. Who's carrying this or that, and it's trusty, it's reliable. You don't have to. I told somebody the other day, he's like, "Man, I miss the days of just like good old cable, right? I could just scroll up and go to this channel or this channel." But man, just kind of the capper on kind of a crazy I should say it's like a November to remember. Here we are, just off of Halloween, all the tricks from they pulled on us in the TV, and now we get maybe what could be a really crazy and memorable playoff race for November.
Yeah, we got a lot to dive into. We're going to recap the games. We're going to preview the upcoming games. We got playoff projections. We got the panic meter. We got Hugh Freeze getting fired. Apparently, according to Friesen Takes, I love Auburn, and I predict them to make the playoff, and Hugh Freeze is the greatest coach in the world. So we got a lot to get to. But before we get into all that, Stephen, don't forget, cousins, we are sponsored by MyBookie, the online sports book. Go check them out if you haven't already. It's a great way to help the show. If you want to wager on some football or maybe NFL or NBA or college basketball, whatever, they got you covered over at MyBookie. MyBookie.ag is the website. The promo code SEC. They'll give you up to $500 buyback guarantee bonus, which means however much you put in for an initial account, let's say even $50, you get it, you get your pick wrong, they'll give you that 50 right back in your account to keep on playing. But Stephen, speaking of MyBookie, maybe there for a week or two, I was saying, listen to Stephen. I don't know, Stephen. I outdid you again, but you still beat me on the season. Stephen and the cousins tied 78 correct picks this season. I'm finally catching up 77 after another winning week by me, and Shane dead last. But Shane will probably beat us in the end for all my trash talking. Man, I tried to warn you about Tennessee, Stephen. I really did. So let's probably start there, because that was a game where, man, Vol Twitter is burning down. And I appreciate Mike A in the comments, because he recalls last week I was consoling him and saying, hey, Oklahoma losing to Ole Miss, that's not a bad loss. Don't be firing a guy because you lost to a playoff squad by one possession. And I would say the same thing to Tennessee. Let's not fire Heupel because we lost the damn game. I mean, we're getting into crazy town here, but we're going to get into more of that later. But what was your thoughts, Stephen, on Oklahoma going into Neyland? Maybe the best environment in all of college football this season, with the dark mode, with everything. And then Tennessee whiffed, but credit Oklahoma for making the plays when they had to.
Mike, I think one of the things that stood out to me, and this is kind of maybe cheesy, but what an awesome environment that was at Neyland on Saturday night. But it's also fun to see the Oklahoma fans get to experience these places in the SEC, kind of like for the first time. It's like Texas also going through the league, familiarizing everybody with the SEC. I think that's kind of a cool little thing we've got going on as Oklahoma and Texas go around the conference for the first time. But Mike, this was a playoff elimination game, and backs against the wall for both teams. And I think when you kind of studied this matchup just on a basic kind of level, this felt pretty even. And it felt like a couple things, whether it was like a turnover, a big play or two, could decide it. And because these teams felt so even and they matched up with strengths and kind of question mark on question mark. And I think when you boil it down to just the basics, Tennessee made a lot of mistakes that caught up to them in this game. Pretty simple. In a 50-50 game, you can't have a fumble return. Shout out to our Mason Thomas for an unbelievable play for a touchdown. You can't spot Oklahoma a couple long field goals. Tennessee, of course, missing a field goal, giving Oklahoma a short field. 50-50 game. Oklahoma made the plays. The mistakes that Tennessee made helped Oklahoma get into position for those scores and take the big lead in the first half. And also, I thought Oklahoma's pass rush made a big difference in the game. Tennessee under 100 rushing yards. Mike, since 2021, when Josh Heupel took over, Tennessee is 1-5 when they rushed for under 100 rushing yards. And for all the talk about Aguilar and receivers, Tennessee still got to get that run game going. Sounds basic, but I think all that stuff kind of added up. Small mistakes, whether it's turnovers, missing a field goal, the field position edge. Oklahoma averaged the 38-yard line, and Tennessee was the 23. So you've got a 50-50 game. Tennessee's making turnovers, making small mistakes. They're losing the battle at the line of scrimmage. Oklahoma had a good day running the ball. All those things added up for what is a very nice win for Oklahoma.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll tell you who probably liked it, Stephen. JR, he's a dog, but it's a good day to be a dog when Tennessee loses. Shout out the legend.
Legend, cousin JR has done it again.
Thank you, JR. He gifted Drew Lock, the Drew Lock? I hope so. Drew, welcome to
the family.
And who else?
Vicky played last night for Seattle, Mike, so thanks for joining us.
Who else always likes watching Tennessee lose is Steven Up, that big Bammer.
Always showing up for them boys in Tuscaloosa. It's Steven Up. Roll Tide.
Thank you, Steven Up. He gifted Based God Based. Welcome to
the family.
Yeah. I was just trying not to talk Tennessee loser for a second. But, yeah, I mean, it was a master class of blowing a game, if you ask me. Tennessee had that one. Place was about to explode till that return. Yeah, it felt weird, Stephen. And this is kind of how I summed up the first half after watching that debacle. I thought if Tennessee would stop turning the ball over and they start finishing drives, I thought they should have been up by about 20 points. And I also thought if Oklahoma had any semblance of an offense in the first half, I think they could have been up by 20 points. Yet, again, and that's a little bit how it played out in the second half because Oklahoma found its rhythm on the offensive side of the football, made the plays, got the running game going. And I know the final score may be a little deceiving because Oklahoma pretty much controlled the second half more or less till Tennessee made that little late rally. But, yeah, it's a credit to the Sooners, Stephen. And, what does that do for the Sooners and their playoff chances? Do you think Oklahoma gets in now? Do you think they finish the deal? What is your Stephen Lassan? Not that you're predicting all these games yet, but percentage 0 out of 100 that Oklahoma makes the college football playoff after beating Tennessee.
Mike, I'm glad you asked me that question because I think the odds of Oklahoma making the playoff went up significantly after Saturday night. Now, when I say significantly, it was pretty low. Now I think we're talking kind of like 30, 40% kind of range here. Let me also break this down, Mike. If Oklahoma loses to Alabama but beats Missouri and LSU 9-3, we could talk a little bit more about this after the rankings come out, but look what happened in the ACC. Georgia Tech lost. There's going to be some more losses there. There's going to be more losses in the Big 12. Notre Dame still has to play Pitt in a few weeks, and that's going to be a tough game for them. What I'm getting at is, when I look around, I'm starting to see this field really condense down. And if the committee really values strength of schedule, 9-3 Oklahoma, even 9-3 Texas are going to be right there on the bubble. So that win for Oklahoma, and you look at losses to playoff teams like an Alabama potentially, their resume is going to be really solid. I don't know if it's going to be enough to get them in, but I think they're just keeping their season alive. And if you get to 10-2 with that schedule, you're going to be in. 9-3, I think you at least got a pretty good chance and a much better chance than what we saw in previous years because of this emphasis on strength of schedule.
Where would you put Oklahoma in terms of the best defenses in the SEC? Because I know, they made the plays, they won the game, thanks in large part to their defense. Again, defense was giving up a lot to Tennessee, but they got tougher as the game went on and won it for them. So I'm just kind of curious where your thoughts are. Where does Oklahoma rank when it comes to the SEC's best defenses?
Mike, I think a couple for that defense to lose like our Mason Thomas and to still finish the job, I think speaks to the depth, and also credit to Brent Venables for figuring it out on Saturday night without one of your best players. So I think a lot of credit there, and also credit for the second half. Like you said, when the game was in the balance, like Oklahoma's defense really kind of helped take control there. I mean, they're certainly top 5, Mike. It's almost like trying to figure out like who's the top. Like Texas pass defense got torched by Vanderbilt on Saturday. LSU's kind of fallen by the wayside. I mean, I think almost by process of maybe elimination, I think maybe they still are the best defense in the SEC. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think so. I certainly after Saturday night as well. So, and point being, Stephen, the reason I asked you that, I wasn't trying to set you up, but John Mateer, again, he looked shaky at times, but I thought he was very effective in the second half. Particularly got his confidence running the football. And if that's, now he's got 2 weeks to rest up if he truly needs it. I don't know. But again, if he can play like he did earlier in the season, if he could play like he did in the second half against Tennessee, I give him a puncher's chance to go into Alabama. And, Missouri's not going to be easy, and certainly not LSU and their defense if they're still fighting hard. But, point being, if they get good John Mateer, if they can run the football outside of him, which they have been here lately, with this defense, they could beat anybody, I think.
I think the key thing with this Oklahoma offense, Mike, too, was there was just a couple clutch plays that Mateer made on through the air or on the ground. And it's like, it doesn't have to be 400 yards of offense. And in fact, I think if you're Oklahoma, you probably would like to see Xavier Robertson and Torrey Blaylock get to that, over 100, one of those backs get to 100 yards every week, because the thing early in the season was there was too much pressure on Mateer. It can't be just quarterback centric. They've got to have some help for him, even with a great defense. So I think just playing under control, not making a ton of mistakes. Obviously, the one interception late was not very good. Throwing in traffic at that point of the game was a bad idea. But playing under control, making the clutch plays, and playing complementary football, like being able to get to nearly 200 rushing yards, playing good defense, becoming a well-rounded team. And that's why I think Oklahoma, with this win and some of these games coming up, this Oklahoma's defense against Alabama's offense in 2 weeks is going to be an outstanding matchup to see how they go back and forth. So I think if you want to take the optimistic route here for Oklahoma, maybe there's some growth in the run game. Mateer maybe getting back closer to the quarterback he was at the start of the season before the injury. And those two things can help Oklahoma finish the season on a high note.
Hey, Old Mace wants to know, do you have a Citadel helmet? He's not seeing Ole Miss Citadel.
I don't have a Citadel helmet. No, I've got the Ole Miss one back over here. No.
If Citadel wins, I'll get you that helmet. I promise. All right.
Yeah. I hope for Ole Miss's sake they don't lose to the Citadel. But yeah.
All right. What about Tennessee? What is a realistic scenario you think for their end of the season? 2 weeks. They're going to need a rest. They're pretty banged up. But New Mexico State should destroy that team. But at Florida, they haven't won since 2003, I believe, in Gainesville. And then the state championship, there you go, talking all that trash. I mean, these are sneaky games, aren't they, Stephen, to where Tennessee probably should win, but Tennessee probably should have won Oklahoma. You know what I mean? So nothing's a given. And I can think of about, I may be exaggerating, but I'm thinking about 23 should have been wins over Florida, and I can recall about 2. So, again, these are tricky games. You got an angry fan base. Where's Tennessee at right now at 6-3? And what do you think is a realistic final record for regular season?
Mike, I still think they can get to 9-3. What's interesting is I mean, they're going to beat New Mexico State. Should beat New Mexico State, but it's like you can almost talk yourself into 7-5 with 2 losses in those games, or 9-3. And there's a big difference there, because if you lose both of those games to Florida and to Vanderbilt, and a Vanderbilt team that is likely playing for either playoff positioning or a chance to get in the playoff at that point, assuming they take care of business against Auburn and Kentucky, there's a lot of pressure. And also you wonder about like where this team is going to be. If they lose to Florida, do they show up against Vanderbilt, and are they motivated to finish the job? Like I said, considering how short they fell on Saturday night and some of the angry Vols fans I've seen out there, and trust me, no one is saying to accept mediocrity here. But 9-3 is not bad given everything that went on this offseason. So there is a big difference to get to 9-3 or 7-5. Florida being a little bit shorthanded, but it is in Gainesville, and certainly the stakes in that Vanderbilt game are very high. So those two games look very much like toss-ups to me, Mike. If Tennessee can finish the job, 9-3 is not all that bad considering what happened this offseason.
Hey, one of the cousins, Stephen, they said, your boy Arch delivered for you once again. Shout out Texas, mighty Texas, Stephen, looking mighty finally. 34-31 over Vanderbilt. Really dominated this football game for much of it till the very end, where Vanderbilt made a rally and there was all these onsides, and it was very similar to last year. But thoughts on this matchup now? Both these teams 7-2 exiting this game, and hey, it's not over for Vanderbilt either. But both these teams still got their playoff hopes well alive.
Absolutely. I mean, I hate to start with the playoff, Mike, but I think that's where we have to start with Texas because of the two losses, like backs against the wall. They've got to win. Well, they took care of business on Saturday against Vanderbilt, and getting off to a fast start was crucial. Love to see Ryan Wingo getting the ball in space. Where has this been all year except for the last couple games? Going to be interesting to see if Sark starts the Georgia game with a pass to Wingo out in space, or if they fake it and throw it deep. I think this Texas offense seems to be rounding into form as we get deeper into the season. I think Arch has played really well the last couple of weeks. Also, Cole Hudson coming back on the offensive line gave that group some stability. No, they didn't rush for 200 yards, but I thought they did a nice job in terms of protection and also opening up enough in the run game. So you have urgency on the side of Texas, but you also got some good things going offensively. The last couple of maybe 6 quarters or so, it feels like they're starting to find their rhythm. And also the Texas defensive front, 6 sacks, held Vanderbilt to 58 rushing yards. When you pair that with the fast start, I think that tells the story of the game. Texas didn't allow Vanderbilt to get into one of those lower possession games, control the pace of the game. They were able to do that, control the line of scrimmage, let Arch and the receivers make some big plays. They had to hold on a little bit too much at the end. It got a little too interesting if you're Texas, but this win continues the season. You go into Georgia with some momentum. You got a chance now to fight your way into the playoff. Same thing for Vanderbilt too. I mean, 2 losses, manageable schedule the rest of the way. This Vanderbilt team is not done by any means in terms of trying to get to the college football playoff.
Yeah, I just think this game, Stephen, was one of the epitome of that phrase, style make fights, right?
Yeah.
And Texas got out to 17-0 lead, and I just said, well, hell, this game's over. Because Vanderbilt's just not built to come from behind like that. But hey, I was thinking of this as you were singing the praises of what Texas is and has become. All these people that gave you a hard time has what one of these damn people, even one, Stephen, have they come back and apologized? Because it looks like you were right about everything with Texas and Arch.
I don't think so, Mike. I don't think so. Still waiting on those Tennessee fans to apologize for me for saying Arkansas could maybe win in Knoxville too. So we could have the Stephen apology hour at the end of the season. So
hey, shout out All Day Trey. Stephen, he gave us $10. Hell, I'm motivated to drink more Tennessee Legend. My dogs do that to me weekly. Motivated to get more cousins too. Come on, go dogs. We appreciate you. All Day Trey. That's a good segue, Stephen, to get into some Georgia whipping Florida. Not really whipping, but winning. That's all that matters. You win again, 5 in a row. And how about this stat? I want to quote it accurately. I know it's got not 100% to do with this game, but this was going on social media this morning, and here it is. Since 2017, Stephen, Kirby is 33-2 over Auburn, Florida, Georgia Tech, and Tennessee. 9-1 against Auburn, 8-1 against Florida, 7-0 against Tech, 9-0 about Tennessee. These are the glory years of the Georgia football program. If you're a Georgia fan, soak all this up, because I don't know that life gets any better than this. But what was your thoughts, Stephen, on once again Georgia beating a rival under Kirby, taking care of the Gators? And after the game, I thought it was pretty interesting. He was so effusive in his praise, Kirby was, of of Billy Napier and the job
Yeah.
he did putting this roster together. But again, maybe he just wanted the committee to know, hey, we just beat a really good team. I don't know.
I mean, maybe he thinks Florida should just hire Billy back. I don't extend Billy. I don't know. I mean, if you're Kirby Smart with that record, you probably want Billy Napier back on the sidelines, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Mike, I know it's November, but it's close enough to Halloween. We can still make one more Michael Myers reference, right? I mean, Georgia is the Michael Myers of the SEC this year. You just can't keep Georgia down. They just keep finding ways to win games. Maybe the style points aren't there, but I do think there is a case here where and you and I have talked about with this Georgia team. They got a lot of youth in spots. There's been a lot of turnover, and with the portal, they've lost some depth. I think over the course of the season that they are going to get better. They're going to round into form in the playoff, and they're probably going to be fine there. But man, if you're a Georgia fan, the heart attacks this team nearly causes you on week-to-week basis, but they find ways to win. And you give credit to Georgia's defense with the transition on Florida's offensive staff, not knowing what to expect, to hold them under 300 yards. Some short fields due to turnovers, bad punts, all that helped Florida get to that 20 points. You also think about that big fourth down stop. Again, Georgia making plays in the clutch on defense, and then the offense answering that with a touchdown, and then the drive to salt it away in the fourth quarter. So Georgia just continuing to find ways to win close games. 4 wins by 10 points or less in the SEC this year. And of course, the only one that wasn't was the Kentucky game. So much like you said, Mike, it is the glory years for Georgia when you're dominating your rivals like this, and credit to Georgia for finding another way to pull this one out.
Liquid, he's asking the big question, Stephen, was it a catch?
Man, I have not seen a great angle on the so when he caught it the live, I did not think it was a catch, but then I saw like a camera angle behind it, like it bounced off his wrist.
Right.
So I kind of thought it was, honestly. What did you think, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was clear that it was a catch. I can't believe people saying it wasn't a catch, but I don't know. It really doesn't matter because they didn't call it one. But I heard this, so I don't want to pretend like I was the first one that said this. But it was someone on SEC Network said, well, hell, DJ Lagway didn't set his feet. The receivers 10 yards behind Georgia. Just set your feet, make a good throw. The reason we're even having this discussion is because it was an underthrown. He had to come back and get it. And Georgia is so good that you only get once a game do you get a over-the-top touchdown wide open. You got to make that play. If you can't make that play, you don't deserve to beat Georgia. So I think it was a catch. Doesn't matter to what I think, but it was ruled not a catch, so it wasn't a catch. So it shouldn't have come down to that. It should have been an easy touchdown, and Florida didn't make I don't want to call it an easy play, but when plays are there to be made, you have to make them, and they didn't come close to making it.
Yeah, I guess to answer Liquid's question, on the replays that I saw, I thought there's another one floating around that someone said it shows it's not a catch, which I would be interested to find that one. On that play specifically, we talk about like Georgia making the plays, Florida not. There's that one. There's also like the fourth down too. It's like the small difference in a rivalry game of winning and losing, and Florida missing that throw where it shouldn't come down to one play, but you missed the fourth down. Like there's a lot of things that kind of stacked up. It's like Georgia made the plays and Florida couldn't in a game that was, I guess, 50-50, in a 24-20 kind of game. So this Lagway has not looked in sync all season. And I think that's one of those throws that, man, if he just connects, who knows how this game could have turned out differently.
All right. The interesting comment here from UT Rage, Stephen. I mean, you go butts and butts and mutts of saying great things about Texas, but it's not enough, Stephen. It's not enough. Love the commentary. Georgia finds ways to win, and Texas sucks for coming back to beat bad teams. I didn't hear you say Texas sucks. I've literally heard you say nothing but the opposite for 9 months. Are we downgrading Texas for? I mean, I think it is not great that they could have, should have lost to Kentucky. I have no respect for Kentucky. I think Mississippi State choked away that game. But I don't know. I'm pretty sure we just said they whooped Vanderbilt's ass. Who's Vanderbilt's top 10?
Yeah, the score is deceiving on the Vanderbilt game, right? 34-31 is not indicative of how much they controlled that game. I mean, we talked last week how much I thought Texas deserved credit for that Mississippi State win. Being down in Starkville on the road, fourth quarter, season-defining quarter, they come back to win. And they, whether it was the Niblett punt return, Arch making plays, Matthew Caldwell, we talked about it, Mike, a ton of credit to Texas. The only game that I wanted to throw my TV, my phone out the window was that Kentucky game, because it made no sense that Kentucky team was hanging around against Texas after they beat Oklahoma. So I try to be, fair. I picked Texas to win the national title this year, but I also think we've been critical of them many times this season, and also fair too.
You didn't pick them to win 2 national championships this year. You're disrespecting them horns. Hey, how about this one, Steve? Appreciate you. Drew gave us $10. Drew Deasy, huge fan of the show. Thank you, Drew. Curious to hear your thoughts. Which SEC team do you think has the best quality win so far, and what makes it stand out to you? Keep up the great work, guys. What do you think, Steven? One comes to mind for me. I would like to hear your thoughts, and I'll give you a moment here I can throw up any schedules you need to, but what is the best quality win that you can think of in the SEC so far?
Mike, I think I could come up with a couple. And by the way, that is a great question, especially with the playoff rankings coming out this week. I think Texas A&M's win at Notre Dame, considering the circumstances, considering Texas A&M had probably fallen short in some of those games. They lost to Notre Dame last year to go on the road, win on the last play in a tough place. Also, I think Alabama beating Georgia, on the road, especially after Alabama lost the season opener to Florida State. Those are kind of two that stuck out to me. Does any that you like differently from that?
Yeah, those were the two that immediately came to my mind. I would say Ole Miss beating Oklahoma on the road. I think that's a really good win.
Yeah.
Particularly, it was nasty weather, which you would sometimes think that would tend to favor the defensive home team. So that was a really good one. And of course, Stephen, Kentucky beat Auburn because it got rid of Hugh Freeze, got his ass out of here. Hell with you, Hugh. But those are probably the three that stand out the most to me. And I'll throw one again. Is this on the same planet? No, but I was really happy for Mississippi State that they beat Arizona State, who at the time, I don't know anything about Arizona State now. They could be the worst team in the country for all I know, but they were ranked like 12 in the country, and Mississippi State was coming off one of the worst seasons of all time, and they beat them at home. So I would, that ranks up there for me as well.
Yeah, that's a good one, because that was kind of a chance with it being a night game to sort of reset the Jeff Lebby era after not a great first season, but to pick up a big win like that with the Saturday night crowd, a ranked opponent coming to Starkville, was kind of a chance to build some momentum. So absolutely on that one. I would also throw out Georgia and Georgia over Ole Miss. I think that's a really quality win. Ole Miss, at this point, solid top 10 team. For Georgia to win the kind of a heavyweight fight and to make, again, the clutch stops in that one. So those are kind of the three: Texas A&M over Notre Dame, Alabama over Georgia, Georgia over Ole Miss. Probably three that stand out to me.
And here we got another Texas. These people, Stephen, I thought everything was bigger. What's bigger is just complaints and bitchery, if that's a word. Mike, Ole Miss over Oklahoma, crickets that Texas stomped Oklahoma and Vanderbilt. Yeah, we just said you whooped the shit out of Vanderbilt, but again, now every game we just referenced was a road game. A&M at Notre Dame, Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, losing to Ole Miss. I mean, that's kind of why that's what stood out to me. None of those wins were road, and John Mateer had surged. Wasn't Texas favored in that game? I'm 90% sure they were favored over Oklahoma. I know it kind of kept going back and forth, but man, I thought they were tough down there in Texas. They're, especially Austin. I think they're a bunch of bitches, is what I think. But That's my words, not Steven's. But all right, any other ones, Steven?
I had Texas over Oklahoma
Yeah.
on my short list here, just largely because of the circumstances. Texas coming off a loss to Florida, backs against the wall, kind of trying to fight to stay in the playoff race. We had the uncertainty around Mateer. That felt like one of those wins that kind of could, and much like the Mississippi State fourth quarter, kind of could define the season for Texas. So that was one that stood out to me as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, Steven, how about a couple games we haven't hit on from over the weekend? Speaking of Ole Miss, I mean, they took another step forward to reaching the college football playoff, made short work of the Gamecocks. What was your takeaways from this one?
Mike, I think the first thing that stands out here, and I hate to be boring by just suggesting this, is like it's taking care of business and moving one step closer to the college football playoff if you're Ole Miss. I mean, they fell short last year of finishing the job. Saturday night was moving one step to finishing the job this year. And you could probably argue Ole Miss didn't play its best game, but they still won by 16 points. They basically spotted South Carolina 7 points on a short field, and Trinidad Chambliss was up and down. They didn't really finish in the red zone, but they still won by 16 points, and they basically moved one step closer to the college football playoff. As boring as it is sometimes, just taking care of business against an SEC opponent when you're favored and when you're in the playoff hunt, as basic as that sounds, that's a great win for Ole Miss.
Yeah, and it's always good when you do something to a team, they immediately fire their coordinator. Now, it wasn't just because of this. It was basically for his whole tenure was awful. But Shula got fired. Any thoughts on that?
It needed to happen. This was a broken offense. I mean, when it's a struggle for an offense to get to 20 points, when it's a struggle to try and get to 300 yards, the other thing too, Mike, is this offense, you could point to every position and point to things that are going wrong with it. I mean, on Saturday night, much like DJ Lagway, Sellers was missing throws. I mean, guys were open. He's got to hit them. Receivers have struggled. The offensive line has struggled. Play calling's been bad. I think schematically it's been a question. Sellers has to play better. We can just go down the list. There are so many questions here. And so I thought, given Shula's track record of working with quarterbacks, it made sense to kind of almost stay in house and promote him with Loggins. But I think from the early in the season, it was very clear that there was a problem with play caller and there was a problem with the personnel, and none of those things were going to work out this year.
Yeah, I think this is a lost season, which I hate to say it, but it is what it is.
A lost season with maybe the first quarterback off the board in the NFL draft.
I didn't say it was good. I just said,
yeah.
All right. How about, Mississippi State finally gets that conference win. Steven, 38-35. They have to come from behind to do it. And I just feel so bad for Arkansas. I mean, man, they had this one just like, we said someone had to win. It kind of felt like someone had to give this one away. And I don't want to say gave it away. Referees didn't help at all. But what were your thoughts on this dramatic game? This was maybe the most entertaining game of the entire weekend in the conference.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, I mean, the setup for this game was somebody's got to win. These two teams have been hit by heartbreak after heartbreak every week of the season, it felt like. And given their schedules, this was probably the best chance for either one to get the SEC victory. And it was entertaining. It was also high scoring, much like we predicted, but also a lot of credit to Mississippi State, because there was at one point they were down 35-21 in the fourth quarter. I thought Arkansas was going to close the job. Shame on me for thinking that, because we've seen this story a lot this year where opposing teams come back in the fourth quarter against Arkansas. But Mississippi State's defense stepping up, Kamario Taylor stepping up when Blake Shapen was hurt. Much like Georgia, Texas, some of these teams, clutch, finding ways to come through in the clutch. As boring as that sounds, the defense for Mississippi State was not very good last year. It's better. It made timely stops on Saturday, and Shapen on fourth down with the conversion to score the touchdown and then get the stop after. Man, Mississippi State in a thriller, just finding ways to win. And what was kind of an important win to kind of get that 0 out of the column in the for SEC victories.
And what do you think this does, if anything, to get Mississippi State to a bowl game? Or 5-4 on the season now. We got Georgia at home. We got at Missouri, and then we get a bye week, 2 weeks to prepare for the Egg Bowl at home. So obviously, still got to win one more. But do you like the odds that State can find that sixth win?
I don't think it's going to be easy, Mike, but I also think you can talk yourself into they've been so close. Now, granted, some of the mistakes in the game, they're probably a little bit self-inflicted. They probably could have coached a spot better or done this or that better, but they've been close on the doorstep to an upset win. Saturday was kind of an upset by the spread, but they've been close. And so if they can just be a little bit better, they get Georgia coming to their place a week after playing Florida. They've got Texas coming up. Missouri's shorthanded at quarterback. Ole Miss, if Ole Miss has 10 victories by that point, they're probably in the college football playoff. And Mississippi State's got a little bit more desperation in the Egg Bowl, and weird things happen in that game, right? So we can't discount it at all.
Hey, if I just remember this, Stephen, and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Mississippi State was your lock of the week last week, and they won, of course, but and they were the underdog. But how nervous were you when Arkansas was up 2 touchdowns that you were going to blow a lock?
Quite a bit, yeah. I was needing some of that Tennessee Legends because, man, between the frustration with the TV situation and that, I was like, oh, man, I'm going to blow a lock this week, and here I am going to fall behind Shane and you guys in the pick'em, but credit to the Bulldogs for coming through there.
All right, then final one here, Stephen. Oh, buddy, if you love ugly football, this was your master class here. But for the rest of us, this was hard to watch. Kentucky wins 10-3. Really, a big part of this game, Stephen, was field position. I mean, not kidding here, but Kentucky really pinned them deep time after time after time. And obviously, this is the Hugh Freeze master class of how to lose your job and of switching quarterbacks, yo-yoing quarterbacks. And, we could go on and on about what an awful everything that guy is, but coach in particular. Meanwhile, Cutter Boley, who I was starting to warm up to, this was by far, I thought, his worst game. Well, maybe that South Carolina was pretty bad when they had 4 turnovers in a quarter, but this was not far off from it. This was just a awful game here to watch, but Kentucky comes out ahead. They don't care how you win it. All they care is that you win. Thoughts on this 10-3 baseball game we had on the Plains? Yeah,
appropriate with the World Series concluding on Saturday night. We had some baseball-like scores. I'm not sure, Mike. Was this game worse than the 7-3 Mississippi State Arkansas game from a few years ago?
Ooh, I honestly, yeah, that one was pretty bad too. But this was close, because this is legitimately. Again, I've kind of made all my peace with Hugh Freeze, but this is those 2 teams you're talking about, Mississippi State and Arkansas. Those are not good teams, and I'm not saying these are good teams, but Auburn's got a ton of talent.
Yeah,
and it just makes it even more pathetic that this is what they're putting out on the field. You know what,
Mike? After I watch a game on Saturday, I try to write down like what I took away from it, maybe with some things that decided the game, and I wrote down one word after the game. Gross, because that's exactly what it was. It was gross. It was pathetic. It was some bad offensive football when 2 teams are under 300 yards of total offense. No knock on like special teams and good defense and things like that, but this was bad offense. I guess maybe the best way to sum this up, Mike, credit to Kentucky for at least not mailing it in. I mean, they could have packed it in after the Texas and Tennessee losses, but they went on the road and beat Auburn. Auburn has wasted a good defense, because this defense for Auburn is really good. It's one of the best in the SEC. And for this quarterback situation for Auburn to be this big of a mess in what was Hugh Freeze's 3rd season is biggest reason that he's fired. I mean, this offense to score 3 points against a Kentucky defense that's not very good, it just doesn't add up. And changing the quarterbacks, you've had your pick of Jackson Arnold. He struggled. We talked about it on the prediction show, Mike. I didn't see anything out of Ashton Daniels at Stanford to tell me he was going to be any better, and I think it showed. No drive for Auburn was longer than 50 yards on Saturday night. No pass play longer than 19 yards. I think that tells the story.
Yeah, and I tried to share the stat on the Sunday night show. I think I butchered it, which I often do. But I believe the stat, and I just saw it on social media, but there's 3 teams, Stephen, in the country that have yet to surrender 25 points in a football game. So I think the number's 24. I said 23 last time. But so 24 or under offensive points surrendered. There's 3 teams in the country. Do you have any idea who those 3 teams are? Would be off the top of your head?
Auburn is one of them, right? And
Correct.
Ohio State, and is it Indiana?
Yeah, you nailed it. So it's all 3. So if I'm not mistaken, I don't watch Little 10 football, but I believe Ohio State and Indiana are number 1 and 2 in the country, basically. They may not be in the playoff poll, but point being, Stephen, Auburn, I mean, this is like, kidding aside, this is like a national championship level defense.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here 4-5 overall, 1-5 in the conference because our dog shit offense. So, I mean, just, if you just average, and I looked this up during the show, if you just average 25 points per game, you might be undefeated. And if you average 25 points per game, you'd have like the 91st scoring offense in the country. I'm not even saying you got to be elite. You just got to not be in the 90s. Yet this is where we find ourselves.
So Hugh Freeze was right. They were close, right?
Close to, except to everything he touched. You know what I mean? So everything he didn't have his hands in. But yes, and shout out Michael Dunlap. Give us $5 at 7:43, and Mike Shula still sucks. Go to watch from the beginning. Go Cox. We appreciate you, buddy.
Mike, Auburn is giving up less than 5 yards of play in SEC games, and they also rank 14th nationally in defensive success rate. This is a top 10 defense in the country, and you can maybe make the case it could be higher. I mean, they have wasted a good defense on a season they will probably finish 5-7 and not even make a bowl game. I mean, it's just offensive incompetence to not have a functional offense to score 25, 30 points a game in this era of college football.
I hate it for him, Stephen. I hate it for him. And go ahead.
You brought up something good, though. I think on the show the other day, the SEC is going to get better through this coaching carousel, though. And Auburn at a place where they can get top 10 classes, and they're going to benefit significantly from having a upgraded head coach right away.
Yeah, I'm so happy you said that, Stephen, because it's so rare that I make a good point. So thank you for highlighting it. But if you want to upgrade your wallet, check them out over at Ridge. Stephen, we hooked you up with a Ridge wallet, and the cousins can get hooked up too by checking them out. Ridge.com, promo code SEC. Get you 10% off your full order over at Ridge. Limited time only. Go check them out. I mean, these are outstanding wallets. They're made of metal. They won't rust or anything like that. You can put your keys in it, or they have a key. I don't know what it's called, but like a key holder type deal. We got that too. Wallets, key holder. But in the wallet, you can put your cards, you can put your cash. It's one hell of a device over there. So go check them out. Ridge.com. Don't forget, most importantly, that promo code SEC. They got all kinds of customizable options. So you can pick the color you want, the size you want, things of that nature. Go check them out. Stephen, are you still happy with your Ridge wallet that we sent you?
100%, Mike. So thank you for you and Cousin Shane for hooking me up with that one, because it is a lot smaller and it's a lot more durable, so I don't have to worry about getting it torn up. And of course, with a 1-year-old and you got to carry like 700 things for this 1-year-old, that Ridge wallet being smaller helps you out. So,
and I hate to tell you, Stephen, we didn't pay full price because we went to Ridge.com, use promo code SEC, got 10% off. So go check them out. And I guess we're calling this. Shout out Marler. He's calling this Huel Freeze. Go check him out over at Huel, Huel.com/thatsec. Get 15% off, Stephen, your full order. Huel is a complete meal with nutritions that you need to thrive. 27 vitamins and minerals, 35 grams of protein, no sugar added, 6 grams of fiber, 27 essential vitamins and minerals, under $5 per meal. Go check them out. It's It's a meal replacement type deal here, a drink. We're trying to get fit. This is a worse time, Stephen. I don't know if you could tell. Shane and I are bulking up. We're just bulking in the wrong areas because this time of year, it gets cold out. You're less active. You're eating all this junk food, watching this fantastic game when you're able to watch. Thanks YouTube TV, you can burn in hell. But just to slim down a little bit, Stephen, we highly recommend you go check out Huel. That's Huel.com/thatSEC, promo code thatSEC. Get 15% off over at Huel.com. Meal replacement drink shakes. They taste delicious. You get all your nutrients, no junk in the Huel. The only junk Huel is Huel Freeze, and he has got no relation to this product. So go check him out. You know what?
The perfect tagline could be, use Huel and freeze that weight. It's like
get the Huel out of here, Stephen. With that,
it is a hard time with the time change too. It's darker outside. You can't get outside and work out. So yeah, it's gonna be hard too. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Like, I'm worried. Like, I'm trying to budget like the Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. I'm like, I have to really do I really need that set of cookies tonight, or can I just wait? Right?
Yeah, we're in a rough spot. We're rationing cookies over here, but it is what it is. All right, Steven, now we covered all the games. Speaking of Huel Freeze, his ass is grass. Auburn job has opened up. I don't know if you've seen this. Again, I don't truly put much stock into this stuff, but it is entertaining. We've got odds to be the next Auburn football coach, Steven. So I'm going to run through these. Kenny Dillingham, the Arizona State coach, he's the betting favorite at 3-1. John Summerall, Tulane coach, 3.5-1. James Big Game Franklin, 4-1. Brent Key, 7-1. Jimbo down on the ranch, 7-1. Ryan Satterfield, Memphis coach, 9-1. Drink, 11-1. Gus Malzahn to Auburn. What? Maybe we shouldn't have fired him to begin with. Dan Mullen, 14-1. Gruden. I mean, I don't really think any of these are too realistic as we go far down the list. But any of these candidates would be a good fit at Auburn in your mind, Stephen?
Mike, I think the first one that jumps out is John Summerall. He's basically kind of second on this list. Kenny Dillingham. I guess let me take a step back here, because I think Dillingham, Brent Key, Clark Lee, Jeff Brom are really interesting in this coaching carousel, because they're all coaching at their alma maters and they're all doing really well. They, in theory, a couple of them could make the playoff this year. So what does that mean? Normally those guys might be looking at another job, but with the 12-team playoff and the fact they're at their alma mater might have an impact on where they go, or if they stay. But I think John Summerall makes probably the most sense here for Auburn, just because he's got ties to the state. I think he'd be an instant winner here at Auburn. So I like John Summerall as second on that list. If you want to look at some names further down, Mike, I think Eli Drinkowitz at 11-1. Not saying he's going to leave Missouri, but I'm sure his name is definitely going to come up in this search.
As Mizzou fans, Stephen, they're tired of hearing Drink rumored for this job, rumored for that job, but it is kind of fascinating. He's currently the odds-on favorite to be the next Florida coach, for whatever that's worth. But yeah, no, I hear you. He's been down there before. He tried to get the job when it went to Harsin, I guess it would have been.
Yeah,
or maybe, I think that was the time. I can't recall, but yeah. I mean, would he take it now? I don't know. He may have a better job now. I've heard some speculation for LSU with him as well, with the old governor down there. I'm staying away from that train wreck. But yeah, it's going to be fascinating, because I think Auburn is a really attractive job, and clearly they have the resources to put together a really good roster. And I think they have the resources to keep this thing together. I've been saying John Summerall for a while. If you can get him, I think that's a home run, because that's all you need. You need a good coach down there. And I think he's one heck of a coach.
I mean, I think the easiest way to look at this, Mike, is if you look at this Auburn roster and see the talent they have mismanaged offensively, this team, and with just a competent offense, we'd be talking about Auburn probably in the top 25, probably in the mix to be, January bowl game, maybe not playoff good. But I think Summerall would be the type of coach that can at least get the most out of this roster every year. We see this at he's won at Tulane. It's one of the I think it's maybe one of the better jobs now in the American with some of the things they've done. But if you just look at track record prior to Willie Fritz getting there, it was really hard to sustain success there. So I think somebody almost like a Mike Elko is that you've got all these good things going, you've got talent. How do you get somebody to put it all together and win at a high level? And Summerall would make a ton of sense to me in this position. It is funny though to think about Drinkowitz's name coming up, Mike. And I know Missouri fans may hate it, but it's actually, isn't it a sign that your coach is actually doing a good job, and that to be desired by some of these other programs, and for someone, to say it's not a slam dunk that he could leave for a place like Auburn or LSU or Florida or anywhere. So I think if I'm a Missouri fan, like that has to be a source of like, my coach is doing good, we actually have a chance to keep him. 10 years ago, I don't know that would have been the case. I think in this era of college football, everybody's paying about the same salary. And because you can revamp your roster quickly, you can contend for playoff spots and national championships. You don't have to go to some place like that. And so I think that's what's interesting about this cycle, between that and also the alma mater pool of some of these guys. What does it mean for these coaching searches?
Mm-hmm. Hey, real quick, I want to give a shout out to All Day Trey. He's gifted 2 memberships. I caught the first one. It was to Joe Rogan. Podcast extraordinaire. Joe, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, courtesy of All Day Trey. And then appreciate you, JP. He said the other one went to Vala Nahara. Vala, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, appreciate you all day. Okay, well, here's what I was going to ask you. With all, I'm starting to see it. I don't know if there's any, who knows, right? Where they're like, well, who's going to take all these jobs? There ain't this many good coaches. And, you hit on like the guy now. We're like, Penn State now, they want Mike Elko. They didn't know who Mike Elko was 2 years ago. You know what I mean? So now he's kicking ass at A&M. And, he probably wouldn't have got that job if he wasn't a defensive coordinator there previously and did such a good job. But the point being is, like, you don't have to hire Lane Kiffin to perhaps be the best team in the conference 2 years later. Just go get you a good coach. A&M's got all the resources in the world. They've had the talent. They had a guy that, they hired they won the press conference the first time around, and it didn't do anything for them. So I guess my question to you, with Auburn open, Florida open, LSU open, and Arkansas, I don't think all these teams are going to win the press conference, but does that even matter? Should that even be a goal that you're trying to accomplish?
Not at all, Mike. I think winning the press conference is nice, but what matters is finding a competent football coach, and especially in this era, obviously X's and O's are really important, talent development, but also think about all the big picture things they have to manage now. Portal, roster management, NIL. There's a lot more to being a head coach than there was 10, 15 years ago. So I don't think, winning the press conference is great. I think what's more important to me is finding somebody who can check all the needs that Auburn has. Find somebody. I would rather take somebody who does okay at the press conference, but they go out and know how to develop talent and to take all these things that Auburn has going for it and maximize it. Auburn has played for, they won the BCS championship. They played for another one, and they have all the resources to be a playoff contender with the talent they can get, the fan base, the facilities, the money. Mike, one other thing we haven't talked about, they had one of the craziest administrative turnovers for a while. Felt like all that uncertainty. They actually have some stability in this cycle, which I think could actually help them, considering all the crazy searches they've had. Now this time it's oh, hey, they've got a little stability. They've got all these good things for it. You just need to find the right coach and not worry about winning the press conference.
Yeah, and this is revisionist history here from Cousin Tony. He said BK never won a press conference. That absolutely not. That is totally inaccurate, because when he got to LSU, maybe you didn't watch it, maybe you weren't aware of it, but he went down there. Hey, I'm down here because this is a place you can win national championships, and that's what I care about. That's why I left the great job that I had at Notre Dame, where he could have been lifetime coach perhaps at Notre Dame. You know what I mean? So, yeah. No, that was another. We won the press conference. Now there was obviously a lot of people and they've all turned out to be 100% valid, who said, man, this is a weird fit, isn't it? With, I mean, for so many reasons. And that turned out to be 100% true. But no, when they landed him, that was a big get. I mean,
Right.
Don't you think, Stephen?
Yeah, it was. I mean, first of all, when Brian Kelly was hired to LSU was probably one of the biggest, I think, shocking moves in recent years from a coaching carousel perspective, because he didn't show up on the radar in terms of the names that were thrown out there initially. And to leave a pretty good place like Notre Dame, considering his history and kind of didn't really fit where he'd been, was pretty surprising. Is it fair to say that Hugh Freeze did he win the press conference?
Not my eyes.
Not right.
I mean, I don't know. I guess so. I think he did a good job. Yeah, because, all right, here's the other thing. Now, this pisses me off, and you're getting me down Hugh Freeze, down this road again. All these Auburn people, they hated Hugh Freeze when he was at Ole Miss. And then it was like that press conference. They were like, all right, this is our guy. We're all in. Now, fans admittedly are, they're just going to support their guy. But the people that I really had a problem with, Stephen, were the media down there. And again, same deal. They got to cover the team. Here's the deal. They can't, if they're not honest with you, I mean, I don't understand why anybody listens to these people. And this is damn near all of them. Not all of them, because there are some good people there. But like, shout out, I don't know if I've never met this guy in my life, and I don't care if he ever hears this. I think he's covered the team for like 50 years. His name's Philip Marshall. I mean, just dog the guy when he was at Ole Miss, and then Hugh gets fired, and he literally wrote an article. You can go check us out at 24/7. He's like, I got good friends that hire prostitutes. And I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like, this is not how you cover a team where, like, as soon as your team hires them, it's like, yeah, prostitution, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like, no, don't be that guy. You know what I mean? And he was to an extreme, but I don't understand how, and I think that's why this show does well, because I tell it like it is. It doesn't mean that I'm right 100% of the time, but if Hugh Freeze was Tennessee's coach, I would have talked about what a sleazebag he was the entire time he was at Tennessee. I would not have, hookers are cool with me. Which actually, we can go on a different tangent here, but I shouldn't go down that road. But again, my true feelings would have been known the whole time. I would not have bent over backwards to protect a sleazebag. You know what I mean? I
have to admit that when you started talking about an article, I thought it was going to be related to like, well, he's a terrible coach and now he's a terrible coach. And that went down like a completely different road. But I appreciate that. That's good. That's a good take. Let me ask you about another coach. Did Billy Napier win the press conference?
No, because he's boring as hell. But so is DeBoring. You know what I mean? I mean, that's why I call him. I mean, he's just. No, I would say he didn't.
I mean, Elko, I thought checked the boxes that he
needed
to. But
now maybe I'm setting that wrong. Maybe I shouldn't call it, win the press conference, because it's less about like, did he do a good job in the opener, or is it like, oh shit, LSU landed Brian Kelly? Well, they're a lock to win the championship now. Jimbo, Texas A&M landed Jimbo. Let's give him his trophy. Insert national. Like, that's winning the press conference. Is you're hiring this big. They're all enamored with Lane Kiffin right now, right? Yeah. If Florida hires Lane Kiffin and he never makes the playoff down there, they won the press conference, but it didn't mean anything. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I mean, is like, you don't have to just hire someone because it's going to give you buzz for the off season. None of that matters. But Coach Elko gave A&M no buzz. Even if all the Aggies were like, I love this guy. When he was here, the defense was great, which it was. And when he left, the defense took a step back, which it did. But nobody, Texas fans, they still make fun of Elko, but what they were calling him like Elmo or whatever. You know what I mean? Like they didn't. And now I'd say today, this isn't even a bold comment. A&M's better than Texas, or at least they look like it. Now, it doesn't matter what you look like November 3rd. It matters what you look like at the end of the year. But again, you don't have to go hire the hot name to to make your Josh Heupel. Tennessee fans, of course, a lot of them are out today, but they hated that, and I remember it very vividly because they were like, "What?" He went undefeated regular season, and then he lost, I think, 2 games, and then the next one he lost 4. They're like, he regresses every year. This guy's a joke, And it just took 2 years, and they were all in on the guy. So you don't have to go get the big name. That doesn't do anything for me.
I think that I guess if you want to win the press conference, you ought to go hire Jimbo Fisher, right? He could talk 800 miles an hour, talk about winning championships, talk about they were inches away at Texas A&M, how he won one at Florida State. I almost hate to say this, but in like Brian Kelly's case, like it was pretty clear the fit was weird. A
Right.
guy who hadn't coached in the SEC, been very, he'd been Notre Dame and Michigan. I obviously didn't, I don't think, engulfed himself in the recruiting era. That I almost hate to utter the words like you got to find the right fit, but I do think there is, like, if this guy fits and he's like dynamic recruiter, he understands, not spending the hours on Twitter talking and whatever it is, been winning the press conference, whatever all that is. If he just understands the football side of things, and you don't have to win the press conference, to me, that's the right fit. Find the right fit that for the things that you need, whether it's the roster, whether it's the X's and O's, whether it's all the program stuff, and don't worry about all the stuff that's just winning the press conference, because in time, wins are the only thing that's going to matter. So you can win the press conference after you start 6-0, and everybody will start buying into it. So the fit is, as weird as it sounds, like finding somebody who understands I don't want to say culture, because it's kind of a bad, kind of weird way to say it, but don't hire somebody who's like a Pac-12 coach who's never spent time in the SEC to be your next head coach. I don't think anybody will, but that's just kind of an example.
Let me ask you this. Are there any G5 candidates? Because I just say it because I know you're far more knowledgeable on these guys than I am. And again, I know Florida, LSU, they're like, we ain't hiring G5. But is there a candidate that would be an ideal fit for the open SEC jobs? And one example, and one I was kind of hoping to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. The guy at UTSA, Jeff Traylor, right? Like him at Arkansas, I think that is now, will that win the press conference? Probably not. Now, he was there previously. He's very popular. But that's what I'm talking about. Maybe someone of that caliber. Is there, and maybe it doesn't even have to be G5. Could be like ACC or whatever, which to me is G5. But, is there a not hot list candidate out there that would kind of fits the scenario for LSU and these teams?
So let me give you a caveat here. We talked about him a few minutes ago. I don't know that he would actually leave, but let me say this. Brent Key will probably not win you many press conferences. Like, he's got a great personality, but man, you can tell he's a former offensive lineman. It's like, it's just X's and O's, like big program stuff, like great guy. Probably not going to win you the press conference, but yeah, he would be somebody that I think would make a ton of sense at a place like Auburn or LSU. I don't know that he's necessarily going to be interested in leaving Georgia Tech. You mentioned Jeff Traylor. Interestingly enough, they played Tulane on Thursday night, and there's some bad feelings between him and John Summerall right now. Hey, bring him into the SEC, spice up the rivalries. Jeff Traylor was definitely one I had on my list. And of course, some of the guys that you've heard, like Alex Golish, of course, John Summerall, I think Eric Morris would sell right away because of offense and his track record. Charles Huff as well at Southern Miss, doing a really good job. And one guy I would keep an eye out for, Bob Chesney at James Madison. They are the best team out of the Sun Belt. He's won at smaller levels. You think about somebody like a Lance Leipold, who's won everywhere. He's now at Kansas. Kurt Signetti did the same thing. Chesney's on the younger side. I'm going to guess that it's not long before he's at a power conference program.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of fun to go down that little rabbit hole. But, all right, Stephen, before we get into the playoff predictions, I know you don't have a long list of panic meter, but who are you most panicked about as we enter November here this SEC season?
Mike, we're going to take a little different kind of tack this week and take a look at some big picture things. So let's start with Georgia. I got to admit, Mike, I'm a little panicked about these second half comebacks. If I'm a cardiologist, I'm moving to Athens right away. Open it up in practice because, man, I don't say this to knock Georgia, because I do think there is a chance that they are playing for the national championship or they're going very far. But when you play close game after close game, it may catch up with you at some point. The margin for error for this team is a lot smaller than it has. I do think they are going to get better, especially as we go into November. But if you play a close game against Mississippi State, you could get beat this week. You could lose to Texas. You could lose to Georgia Tech. They almost did last year. So while I think they're in good shape to make the playoff, they've got to find their way out of this close, cardiac Bulldogs kind of feeling here in the fourth quarter to get to the playoff. And then when you get to the playoff, you got to be able to close the door in some of these matchups in the semifinals and potentially even beyond that.
Right. And it's just one of those, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, isn't it, Stephen, where you got to imagine you get into the playoffs, virtually all these games are going to be close. Now maybe not first round or something like that, but point being, like, if Georgia let's say they're playing Ohio State or Indiana or whatever, and it's probably going to be a close game. The Dogs have been there; they'll be comfortable. But at the same time, it's like maybe even before then, down the road in the regular season or an SEC championship, where they keep finding themselves in these situations and they keep finding ways, but at some point that ball is going to bounce a little bit differently, and that's going to be out of your control. And it goes back, maybe it's not a perfect example, but there's that old adage, we pick apart everything in the offseason, right? But one of the things that is really smart to look at is like one-score games, your record, the previous year, or maybe even the previous 2 or 3 years, because eventually that's going to even out. Yeah. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of where you're leaning. Like, eventually, can you do this every week? Perhaps, but you're playing with fire here.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear. I'm not trying to not say Georgia's a top 5 team, because I do think they are. But I think, like you said, every offseason, one of the things that we look at in terms of season to season predictions, one of those things is those one-score games, because oftentimes 6-0, 7-0, 5-0, often it means immediate regression the next year. And you can look at the Big 12 as a perfect example of this. Is some of those teams that had great one-score records last year regressed. The bounces went their way, whether it was turnovers or injury luck. And so I guess what I'm worried about with Georgia is I think they're going to get better. And I think there's a lot of belief, when they get into the playoff, they match up well against anybody in the country. But playing a one-score game against Florida is a lot different than Ohio State. If you're in a semifinal against Ohio State and you're trying to win the national championship and you leave opportunities on the table, my guess is Ohio State's going to finish the job, and it's not going to be a one-score game at that point so you can take advantage of it. So I think that's my concern is, can Georgia kind of amp this up a little bit over the last half of the season, slam the door, make the playoff, and then make that run for the national championship?
Mm-hmm. All right, what else are you panicked on, Stephen?
About South Carolina. 4th offensive coordinator under Shane Beamer. Mike, I don't know too many coaches that get a 5th. I don't know too many that get a 4th, unless they are just leaving for other jobs, right?
I think I'm so glad you said that, Stephen, because that's 1,000%. I was going to ask you, well, heck, this may be, if it goes poorly, this may be the last opportunity Beamer gets, and we'll see what Sellers does. And this is not just you saying it, but a lot of people, that Sellers is going to go to the draft, which I don't even know if. I don't know. I don't have any clue, because I don't follow NFL draft people. I don't know what they still think of him. But if there's still a high opinion of him, I can't imagine he's going to be like, well, I trust Beamer to fix this shit. But my advice to Shane Beamer, not that he would ever ask me for advice, but would be to pull an Indiana or an Oklahoma, where you identify a quarterback and a coordinator package. I think that's if they don't do that at Carolina, I think they're making a mistake. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that idea because one of the things I think about with South Carolina is I think if there's got to be some urgency to find somebody who can come in and fix this right away, because I don't want to say Shane Beamer's on the hot seat, but it does feel like if they go whatever the final record is this year, that it is going to start to get a little bit warm next year, because you can't have a fifth offensive coordinator hire unless you just nail this one and that guy becomes a head coach. And it's not a track record of, well, they've had good coordinators and they left. These guys have all been not so good. I mean,
Right.
Marcus Satterfield, Dow Loggins was fine the last half of last year, and now you really whiffed on Mike Shula, wasting potentially Lenora Sellers. On the NFL draft, Mike, I think it's worth considering that it is a pretty weak quarterback class right now. You know, like Fernando Mendoza at Indiana, Ty Simpson of Alabama. We'll see what Arch does, obviously. But, you know, there's a need there for a first round quarterback. And I could see the NFL would absolutely fall in love with the Sellers skill set. So I don't think it's guaranteed. I don't know if he's decided yet, but there's an opportunity for him to go very high if he's picked. But when I look at some of the coordinators that could be available, Mike, I mean, if Bobby Petrino's not the head coach at Arkansas, he's got a track record of fixing offenses right away. I know you don't bring a quarterback in this scenario, but Joe Moorhead, he's the head coach at Akron. Andy Koltanecki at Penn State, they're struggling this year. He's been pretty good outside of that. Alex Mortensen at UAB has done a really nice job. He's a former Alabama assistant off the field. He's now their interim head coach. I could see him. Billy Napier played his college ball at Furman.
I don't know that this would sell well. And again, you don't do it because it sells well. You do it because your job's on the line. But I haven't watched Clemson really, aside from the LSU game. But what about their coordinator? Is he doing anything, or is he just awful too?
There's definitely some frustration among Clemson fans about Garrett Riley, but
because he worked with his brother, right? So I'm just saying, there's probably a connection there.
They have had some injuries. Cade Klubnik, their quarterback, missed some time. They've been banged up at receiver. In ACC games, they're averaging over 30 points. So, and they had a great day Saturday. They came up short against Duke. But I could see, I think the question with some of these, like especially with South Carolina, could be, is there anybody that's getting cast off in some of these? We've got 13 jobs open. You know, is there someone maybe like Philip Montgomery's a good example. He's the interim head coach at Virginia Tech. Maybe he could come in. Maybe you don't have to pay him the salary he's getting a buyout from somewhere else. Like I could see some of those potentially working out for like a South Carolina in their search.
Mm-hmm. All right. What else are you panicked on, Steven?
Let's talk about LSU. Speaking of coaching searches, right? Little bit crazy, off to a crazy start, but crazy might be the understatement there. Got a lot of interference right now, a lot of chatter from the governor trying to figure out what to do with these contracts and, firing Scott Woodward. Mike, you can call me crazy on this one, but I'm going to set the panic meter in this one to actually be pretty low. Hear me out. LSU is one of the best jobs in college football. There's a lot going for it. Also, you got time to get your house in order. It's just the start of November. I know this coaching search got off to a crazy start and a lot of crazy things were said, but LSU is not going to be hurting for coaching candidates. So am I worried? Yeah, a little bit. At the same time, I think a coach is going to go, I can go win a national championship over there. And I know there's some other crazy stuff going on, but I'm going to go win some football games, win a national championship, and at the same time eat some good food. And I'll make some $1 million or $2 million out of it. That's not a bad life, right?
No, I think that's the rational take. It's not as fun, but it is the rational take that I think certainly makes the most sense, because that is such a great job. I'm fearful that the powers that be are making it more difficult than it needs to be. But I'm also highly, highly concerned, Stephen, which again, I don't know how much power this guy's going to have, but apparently he fired Scott Woodward and made the decision on Brian Kelly. But the governor calling out Jimmy Sexton and Trace Armstrong. I don't even know if he knows who those people are, but he basically called them out and said, we're going to, we need to go to an incentive-based contract, which that's, in a sense, I agree with him. I think all the cousins will probably, these coaches shouldn't be getting paid all these buyouts and guaranteed money. That's fantastic. We can all believe it, but we know how competitive it is down here. And guess what? If Auburn and Florida are vying for the same coach, they're both going to bend over backwards to give a guy whatever the hell he wants, and that's going to include fully guaranteed and multiple years. So it's nice to sit here and say incentive-based, but if Florida puts a contract in front of Kiffin that's guaranteed, and Ole Miss puts a contract in front of Kiffin that's fully incentivized, he's taking the guaranteed. So, again, it sounds great, but it's just not going to work.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is a concern of mine in this search, is kind of where that contract ends up being, because you're right. I think it's, in a perfect world, that's probably where they all need to be shifted to, because it's absolutely asinine that you're paying $50-60 million for guys not to coach. And it takes $100 million to buy out a staff and then hire a new one. That's just crazy talk. But at the same time, though, it would require every school to go along with it. I mean, Florida, Auburn, Penn State. I mean, Florida State could open up this offseason too. So it would take a pretty concerted effort by everybody to not go that route. And I don't think that's going to be the case at all this offseason.
And Tony totally redeemed himself. Mama said it was a good job. And shout out MV, best comment of the night. Governor should go on incentive-based contract.
100%.
It ain't happening. But again, turn it around on him. We'll see how it is. Anything else you panicked about, Stephen?
Well, I'm not panicked, Mike. But boy, I've been seeing a lot of Vols fans the last couple of days who are just
fire his ass.
Right. Fire Josh Heupel. After the Oklahoma game, I get the frustration. I'm not saying to accept mediocrity. I'm not saying you can't be upset about things. You don't have to listen to me at all. I'm just saying, yes, Tennessee needs to do some things better. And it is very easy to take over a program and make it better in a short time. It's really hard to go from like a tier 2 contender to a tier 1 contender. That's the challenge that Josh Heupel has to figure out. But also, I think if we peel back for a second and remember that Tennessee lost quite a bit of personnel from last year's team, preseason expectations were like, hey, if they get to 9-3 after losing Nico, that's a pretty good season, right? And Joey Aguilar comes in day one. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Yeah, he had a bad night at times on Saturday. But I think a little bit of perspective here is that, Tennessee's defense has regressed, and they're missing or have missed 3 of their best players for chunks of the season. Arian Carter, you take away 2 corners that are really hard to replace, including a guy who's an All-American, and they still could finish 9-3 this year. So alpha playoff appearance, they've had a lot of turnover. They still could finish 9-3. I'm not saying there's not things for Heupel to work on, but man, it really feels like some of the reaction has been a little too hot on this one. So I'm not panicked. I know Tennessee fans are, but I think everything that happened this year, I think it's worth just keeping in perspective where this Tennessee team is and where they were compared to where Josh Heupel got there.
Right. Yeah. And all that's fair. And I like the fact that Tennessee fans are out here like, we need to be winning more at home for what they invest in the program too, the scene and all that. But yeah, at the end of the day, you lost. Should you have lost? I mean, that's debatable, but that's life in this conference. Things are going to go, one decision here or there can kill you in these games. And that's what really got Tennessee. So, wouldn't throw out what do they say? Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Yeah, there's things to work on. The expectation should be excellence. But, if you don't, expectations and if you fall short, it doesn't mean you blow up the whole damn thing, because, I have lived life in the wilderness here, Stephen, and it was not that long ago. And you fire this guy, or you push him out to where he wants to take a LSU job or something. Look at it this way, Stephen. If LSU, Auburn, or Florida even, I know they're all enamored with Kiffin, but let's say they can't get Kiffin. If they could get Heupel tomorrow, would they take him?
I think some of those programs would, wouldn't you?
I think all of them would.
Yeah. I mean, I think a guy with a track record of winning at 2 schools who can coach offense and put an exciting brand of ball on the field. Maybe the question here is, I feel like Tennessee's floor is pretty stable under Heupel. Like, I'd be pretty surprised if they regress back to 6-6, 6-6, like over years. I think the question is, can Heupel get this raise the ceiling essentially? And I think in this era of college football, it really wouldn't take very much for Tennessee to go from like 8-4 to 10-2 next year and make the playoff. And I think what you were getting at is kind of like where I'm falling with Heupel right now. Is obviously it's on him to do this offseason evaluation and figure out at the margins, what are they not doing? Because they had Georgia on the ropes. They could have easily won that game. They could have easily beat Oklahoma. Bounces don't go your way sometimes. But at the same time, though, the defense has regressed quite a bit. Is there things they could do differently offensively? That's kind of like figuring out how you go from tier 2 to tier 1 and become that annual national championship contender. I think it's hard for Tennessee to do that, but I think they got a pretty stable floor under Heupel. And the alternative is, if you do want to get rid of him, the alternative could be the next Jeremy Pruitt coming in, or the next Butch Jones that wins the press conference but doesn't win on the field, right?
Oh yeah. Or hire the next Kiffin who leaves in the middle of the damn night. You know what?
Mike, I don't know if you saw this stat, but the last couple of coaches at Auburn basically had a stint at Arkansas State. It was Harsin,
right?
Malzahn, Freeze.
Yeah.
You know what that means? Butch.
Come on, Butchie boy, back to the SEC. Man, if they go down that far, I say might as well bring back Freeze.
Bring back or hire Jimbo, All
right. Anybody else on the panic meter, Stephen?
Mike, I think that's it for the panic meter. I think we've panicked enough. Tennessee fans panic kind of won the weekend, I think.
Okay, so let's get into. Oh no, I didn't upload it. Give me, Stephen, while I go over here and update the bowl projections and playoff projections you have. Just give us quick thoughts real quick on week 11 in the SEC. Which game are you looking forward to the most?
Mike, I think the first game that I am looking forward to the most has got to be that LSU and Alabama showdown. A lot of intrigue in this game annually for me. Just love over year, the amount of talent that's on the field between LSU and Alabama, some of the great games that we've seen, but also wondering about interim coach bump. Frank Wilson taking over, Alex Atkins as offensive coordinator. What kind of bump can they get from the off week, new staff to jumpstart that offense? And then you also look at the Alabama side of things. Ty Simpson and these receivers going up against a very good LSU secondary. So I think just a ton of interest from like the series. You got some really interesting matchups. Can LSU kind of rally under the interim coach and change momentum for the second half of the season? Garrett Nussmeier, Ty Simpson, fantastic quarterback battle as well.
All right, Stephen, thank you for buying me some time so I could throw this fantastic playoff projections and bowl projections via Stephen here. So, man, dropped from the playoff SEC teams this week. Vanderbilt, you had them in last week. Right now, Bama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M are the four right now, according to Stephen, that are projected to make the college football playoff. And I also asked you, Stephen, if you'd be kind enough to give us your projected top 12 playoff rankings. Can you give that to us?
Absolutely. So I think 1 and 2 are probably going to be set on tomorrow night, and that's Ohio State and Indiana. I think the question is going to be starting at 3. I think Texas A&M should be 3. I think what's interesting about the rankings is we're going to find out exactly how much the committee values that strength of schedule. This was supposed to be an extra point of emphasis this year, strength of schedule. Well, Alabama's racked up a couple good wins the last couple weeks, top 25 wins. Does that impact the Alabama-Texas A&M debate? I don't think it will, but I'll be curious. So Alabama's got the good wins. I think they're 4. I put Georgia at 5, Ole Miss at 6. So
Wow.
4 straight SEC teams, followed by Oregon at 7, BYU at 8, Texas Tech 9, Notre Dame 10, Texas 11, Oklahoma 13. I suspect Vanderbilt will probably fall right outside of that, maybe even 13 or 14.
Okay, interesting. So a glut of teams just outside. And then are we still doing the craziness, Stephen, where it's like we got to rank all these G5s and conference champion? I mean, will that push a SEC team or two potentially out?
Yes. So there's 5 conference champs that are locked in. And I just want to direct you to the ACC championship race, which is pretty crazy right now. Virginia, I think they're a little bit of a, I don't want to say fraud, but I don't think they're quite as good as their ranking's going to be tomorrow night. But the ACC champ could conceivably be like 15 or so. So you're still going to get those 5 automatic teams locked in as conference champions. But Mike, I think this brings up a good point. And I think for fans of Texas and Oklahoma and for Vanderbilt and even Missouri, depending on what happens this weekend, I think you really want to start looking at what's going on in the Big 12 and what's happening with Notre Dame and the ACC right now, because this could determine whether one of those 9-3 teams from the SEC gets in or they're out. Personally, I don't think the Big 12 deserves 2 teams in. I don't think the ACC deserves 2, but there's a chance. So if there's one team from the Big 12 that gets in, it opens up a spot for like a 9-3 Texas, 9-3 Oklahoma, 10-2 if they get there as well. So what I would say is don't let the rankings tomorrow night get your blood pressure up, because they're going to change a lot in the next couple of weeks.
You want us to be rational, Stephen? How dare you? That's not going to happen here. But no, I get it. It's just something to think about. But all right, so again, Texas, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, just on the outside of Stephen's playoff projections. So obviously those teams can, well, I don't know. We were kind of debating this. Do you see a world, and I think you said this long ago, so I'll give you credit as well, but is there a world where Texas goes 9-3, which would means they have to win either at Georgia or against A&M? Do you see a world where Texas goes 9-3 and they get the benefit of making the college football playoff? Because again, Oklahoma, that's a top 10 win. Vanderbilt is a top 10 win. Georgia or A&M would be a top 10 win. It's very hard for me to see a 9-3 team, even though, I mean, I don't understand it. We've had 1 year of this playoff, and people are like 9-3. Well, you can't possibly make the playoff here. History says, well, I mean, it's one year. But when you schedule a game at number 1 and you lose by 7, and you have 3 top 10 wins, I'm not saying you should be a lock, but I think that should probably put you in. What's your thoughts on 9-3 Texas, assuming they beat at Georgia or A&M? What would be, or hell, I mean, imagine them beating Georgia and A&M but losing Arkansas. Then we can sit there and say they got 4 top 10 wins, which that's just comical. But, you know, if they beat Georgia or A&M, they beat one of those and they're 9-3. Is Texas getting in?
Mike, I think there's a pretty good chance. So let me walk you through this scenario, because I looked at this on Saturday night after the games. And well, number one, I think it's going to require, the ACC to only get 1 team in, and the Big 12 to get only 1 team in. So I think that's an important qualifier right off the jump. But let's just say if that happens, Texas Tech and BYU play this weekend. So if BYU loses, they've got 1 really good win and a bunch of outside of that on the resume. So I would suspect they're going to drop back. So all of a sudden you talk about, okay, if Texas does go into Georgia and wins, now you've got a win over top 10 Oklahoma, top 10 win over Georgia, maybe a close loss to A&M, a close loss to Ohio State. I know people are going to say, well, losses don't matter on the resume. They do when you're comparing for the college football playoff. Like, you're trying to figure out who you've played and what the results are. If Texas is 9-3, and there's a second Big 12 team that's 10-2, like a BYU, I mean, don't you have to give Texas the credit for going on the road and playing Ohio State, losing close, and also having those top 10 wins? To me, 9-3, and that's in that scenario, that is a playoff team over a 10-2 team that has no top 25 wins potentially.
If we don't honor that, Stephen, then everybody is going to go to this Missouri, Ole Miss, Indiana scheduling model where they just play the shittiest teams possible just to get it. Because people are like, well, 10-2, you're in. 9-3, you're out. Well, then why even play these damn games?
Well, right. And that's also supposed to be the emphasis this season, which they are saying, you are incentivized in the new strength of schedule model to win those games against good teams. And they're supposed to be weighted. They have some additional metrics, but really the bottom line is they're trying to emphasize strength of schedule. And if you're telling me that a team is 9-3 and they've got a loss to maybe like the number 1 team in the country, the number 3 team in the country, and a road loss in Gainesville in one of the toughest places to play, and we're putting that resume up against somebody that's 10-2, and they either have one top 25 win or none, to me, it's not even a question. It's got to be the team that's 9-3 and they've got the good wins. So Mike, I think it is. People are going to freak out about this, but I do think Texas and Oklahoma, if they're 9-3, they have a much better chance this year than any team that was 9-3 last year to get in the playoff. As we sit right here in early November, that could change in a few weeks, but right now I think it is viable.
Right. Yeah, and I'm glad you threw Oklahoma in there too, because you've been on that train as well. Because again, all we heard was this was the gauntlet of gauntlets. And if you get to 9-3, I get it. It's never happened. It can't happen. But I mean, no. I mean, Stephen, you know better than I. But I mean, would Indiana trade their schedule for this one? The answer is hell no. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it also on the Oklahoma thing, that win over Michigan could be huge. Because Michigan is probably going to get to 9 wins before they play Ohio State in the season finale. They play Northwestern, they play Maryland, and then they play Ohio State. They should be 9-2. So if I'm Oklahoma, I'm going, hey, if Michigan beats Ohio State again, we beat these guys in the whatever second week of the season, and we're sitting here at 9-3 with this schedule. You've got to consider us for the college football playoffs. So just comparing, some of these teams across, the Big Ten and the SEC, the depth that's in the SEC this year, it is going to bulk up some of these teams in that 9-3, 10-2 range for those at-large spots.
And then, so you have Vanderbilt out. Does that mean that you project them to lose a game? Or, I mean, if they go 10-2, do you believe that they'll make the field?
I think they have a really good chance to make it at 10-2, Mike. I am projecting, at least right now, they're going to be behind Texas. I think Texas has got a good chance to get one of those games, whether it's Georgia or A&M. So kind of feeling 9-3 right now for Texas, which I think still keeps them ahead in the final rankings. I also kind of torn on Vanderbilt, Tennessee a little bit. It's kind of close to a toss-up as we sit here in early November. Want to see how Tennessee finishes out. That game, if Vanderbilt wins that, they're 10-2. I think they're going to be right there on the bubble, whether that's the last team in, last team out, depending on what happens with Texas and Oklahoma. I guess maybe the easiest way to look at this, Mike, I think if you're a Vanderbilt fan, I think you kind of want Oklahoma and Texas to lose a little bit more and get to 8-4 and not 9-3.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. So the Vanderbilt fans root against Texas. That makes sense. Yeah, that certainly makes sense. All right. Any other thoughts, Stephen, on the playoffs or the playoff projections or anything like that?
Mike, one other thing on Vanderbilt, the only top 25 win that they have right now is Missouri. And so I think you probably want Missouri to kind of pick off one of these teams, whether that's, Texas A&M or Oklahoma, to stay in the top 25, because I think that's going to be the battle. 10-2, 9-3. If we're looking ahead a little bit, if Missouri falls out, their case to get in at 10-2 is still strong, but comparatively to Texas and Oklahoma, I think they're probably going to lose that battle. So just some things like that I'm watching. I think tomorrow night's rankings, Mike, the biggest takeaway that I have is understanding how the committee views these teams right now really helps us to frame the rest of the season, because we have a really good idea of what they're valuing in terms of the strength of schedule, and that can really inform some of these 9-3, 10-2 debates like we have. So I think if you're the SEC, you feel good about 4 teams getting in, still think they got a chance to get a 5th team. If you're Oklahoma, if you're Texas, if you're Vanderbilt, if you're Missouri, all still there to play for those teams.
All right, let me ask you this, Stephen. I don't know if you've considered this at all. You got Ole Miss in, as you should, but what if they drop a game? Not obviously not Citadel, but if they lose to Florida again or Mississippi State and they go 10-2, I'm not saying we kick them out, but do they deserve to be in at 10-2 over these 9-3 Texas, or probably 9-3 Oklahoma wouldn't have a case because they beat them head to head. But if Oklahoma goes 10-2 or Texas goes 9-3, let's just stick to Texas for now. 9-3 Texas, 10-2 Ole Miss. I mean, what's their big win? Oklahoma, I guess. LSU.
I was going to say it's probably Oklahoma. Maybe. I guess maybe you could make a case. Maybe LSU could squeeze back into the rankings if they can turn this around a little bit, so you get a second ranked win. Close loss to Georgia also could matter on the road in Athens. I think Ole Miss at 10-2 is probably safe in the college football playoff. And I say safe, they're probably one of the last teams in. But that's also kind of goes back to with what the committee's valuing with strength of schedule. Like tomorrow night, if we see Texas and Oklahoma that are higher than 11th or 12th, then we need to rethink this whole thing, because that could really change how we view the next half of the season. And we start going, okay, 9-3 really is like, if you're 9-3 and you're Texas and Oklahoma, you get in the field if they're really valuing or maybe overvaluing that strength of schedule. But I think a 10-2 Ole Miss team is probably getting in. I'd be surprised if they're left out at that record.
Well, and I know we talked Missouri. I know it's probably unlikely, but what if they win out, Stephen? A&M at home, Mississippi State at home, at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. If they go 10-2, are they in?
I think they probably are. Don't you think so?
Yeah.
I mean, wins over Texas A&M and Oklahoma, 2 top 15, 10-ish wins. I think that's a playoff resume. And a loss to Alabama, that's a playoff team, and a good Vanderbilt team. That to me is a playoff resume.
So don't write them off. I'm just saying, playoff, and that's a perfect segue, Stephen, to Week 11. I know you already hyped up LSU, Alabama. We'll talk about that for sure. But thoughts on this A&M Missouri game? Both teams 2 weeks to prepare. A&M's been getting their rears kissed for really the whole season, but the last 2 weeks especially. Meanwhile, Missouri left for dead. Quarterback's out. They got nothing. They can't compete. Nothing going on. Drake's leaving. Oh my God. And then they could shock the world here, Stephen. Thoughts on A&M at Missouri, who there was some bad blood last year, if you remember. I know they haven't forgotten in Columbia.
Oh yeah, the blanket might be getting a for this one. Mike, I think maybe in the most basic way to look at this game is, if you're Texas A&M undefeated, if you win this game, you're one step closer to the SEC championship and the college football playoff. Because I think if they win this game, they should beat South Carolina. They're definitely beating Samford. They're going to be 11-0. By that point, they're pretty much locked into the college football playoff, and we'll see about the SEC championship and how some of those things play out. But I think it's Texas A&M having the off week to reset from LSU. It was such an emotional win. Now you got a chance to reset. Missouri also has a chance to reset and get Matt Zollers ready. Having 2 weeks to prepare for your backup quarterback is a huge deal. So I suspect that Zollers, who I thought he played well against Vanderbilt, will be ready to go on Saturday. I think the matchup two matchups I'm watching right away is, how does Texas A&M stop Ahmad Hardy? Because if I'm Texas A&M, I am all in on trying to stop him, and you make the young quarterback beat you. And then if I'm Texas A&M, make sure you protect up front. But we've seen teams have some success through the air against this Missouri secondary. It could be a good day for Mario Craver and Kevin Concepcion. So a lot of intrigue here, kind of backs against the wall. If you're Missouri, Texas A&M win, and you're one step closer to the playoff.
Yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of it, Stephen. I'm seeing a lot this season where the team that is desperate has got to win, and one that's got a mulligan, so to speak, I don't know. It's playing itself out on the field. That's all I'm saying. I think Missouri's an underrated home field advantage too. So I don't think this is going to be any kind of gimme that some people may think it is.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the only thing that just gives me pause about this matchup is just not knowing what we're going to see from Zollers over the full game. I think the initial impression was strong. The bye week gives him time to get up to speed. But going against an Elko defense and some of the things they can throw at you, it's a whole different, variable here. So you're right, though. Home field, backs against the wall. We saw Missouri go toe-to-toe with Alabama a few weeks ago. I think they're a very, very dangerous opponent here for Texas A&M.
Yeah, and I think Missouri's defense very underrated.
Yeah.
And we have seen it many times where A&M, now it obviously hasn't killed them, but they have had issues with penalties. And they have had issues on defense on the road.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just putting the pieces together here, Stephen. All right. So I know you were hyping up Bama, LSU. Man, this game's always good. And it could very well, I think LSU is probably going to play better without old Brian Kelly and certainly without Joe Sloat out there. But again, this is, I know DeBoring, he wins at home, but unranked opponent, these are the games they slip in.
Uh-oh, right? I mean, there's a lot of things here that makes this game interesting. It's just, there's so many talented, high-level players for LSU. And it seems like this team, I know last year's game was one-sided, but LSU, Alabama, the talent, there's always so many intriguing battles when these two teams meet up. And you got to figure LSU is going to be motivated. Yes, the spot is difficult on the road in Tuscaloosa. They were embarrassed by Alabama last year. So between the new coach, kind of this rivalry, the high-level talent here, I think it could be tricky for Alabama if LSU is motivated here. But also I think within the matchups, just seeing Ty Simpson and these receivers going against LSU secondary, does the off week help Garrett Nussmeier at all? What kind of tweaks does Alex Atkins put on this offense for LSU? There's just a ton of mystery here for LSU. There's still some limitations on the offensive line for this team, but at the same time, there's still a lot of receiver talent and quarterback talent. And if Atkins and Frank Wilson can find a way to maybe make this offense go a little bit better, there's a chance this game is a lot more interesting than the spread would say off the bat.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case. And correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen. I should have looked this up prior. But Alabama, I know they had a lot of success against Tennessee, but they've not exactly gotten after the passer either. Right. And huge if, but if LSU could give Nussmeier time, I don't know. I think he could pick them apart a little bit. I don't know. Hey, it's going to be very fascinating to see what this offense looks like with Joe Sloan, who he should not have been brought back. That's obvious by now. But he just was never really that good of a coordinator for LSU. So who knows? They could get, obviously, the interim bump, but more importantly, the offensive coordinator bump, 2 weeks to prepare. But again, Alabama, heavy lean here, but it's very unlikely. I get it. But let's say LSU wins out, Stephen, at Bama, Arkansas, Western Kentucky, and at Oklahoma, maybe we got to consider Frank Wilson for this job. Would that stun you if they won out?
I would be pretty stunned if they won out, just given the bookend of road games, Alabama and Oklahoma.
I'm sorry. I mean, if they won out, if they kept them, would that stun you?
Probably a little bit.
Damn it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I think Frank Wilson is a very trusty assistant there for the next coach. And he was head coach at UTSA before too.
Right. That's what I was going to say. He's got head coaching experience. I'm just saying. MV says LSU wins out in water polo. No.
You brought up the Alabama pass rush. They are tied for 11th in the SEC in sacks in conference only games. And you are throwing, if you're Nussmeier, you're kind of throwing into the strength of the defense in the secondary. So kind of an interesting matchup of not really getting a lot of pressure. You got some guys banged up, of course, in the front seven, and you're throwing it right into the strength of the defense. So it'd be interesting to see how they counteract that with the concerns they have on the offensive line and maybe even being shorthanded there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just trying to hype up these games, and Steven's just trashing it. All right, how about this one? Georgia at Mississippi State. Mississippi State finally got a conference win. They've been so close for so long, but they sealed the deal. And then we got the Cardiac Dogs coming to town. Steven, thoughts on this matchup?
Mike, does this game deserve a danger zone siren here for Georgia?
I think it does.
Let me present to you the schedule here for Georgia, Mike. They just got the big win over Florida. Huge rivalry win. They got mighty Texas coming in a few weeks on November 15th. Arch Manning red hot right now. I think that this is a little bit of a tricky spot going on the road to Starkville, especially considering how well Mississippi State has played at home, nearly beating Tennessee. They knocked off Arizona State. They nearly beat Texas a few weeks ago. So I think the spot, and given Mississippi State's track record of playing close games this year at home, I think makes it a tough matchup for Georgia. I think the biggest question here for Mississippi State is going to be, I think, a kind of a fast start, because then you get a chance to keep the crowd in it. You make Georgia play from behind. But if Georgia comes in and just physically manhandles this defense, where they get the run game going and they're just draining the clock and they're taking the crowd out of it, then I think it gets a little bit tricky. I mean, the matchup of Georgia's rushing attack against Mississippi State's defensive front is probably a big check in favor of Georgia. But the spot, the home field advantage for Mississippi State's pretty interesting here as the Bulldogs trying to get bowl eligible.
Those cowbells will get you, Steven, especially when you're not expecting it. You know what?
Also, maybe no Jordan Hall for Georgia. Doesn't sound like he's going to be back this week.
That's tough. That is tough. But since we're doing the Dogs, we got to shout out All Day Trey. Gifted to, you're going to love this name, Steven. Mayo Corn Dog. Mayo, welcome to
the family.
Yeah, thank you, All Day Trey. And Brett also became a member. Brett Connor. Brett, welcome to
the family.
Hopefully you like Mayo Corn Dogs, Brett, because that's what you're getting when you come in here. All right, how about this one, Steven? We can't call it an interim bowl because for some reason Stoops still has a job. But Florida at Kentucky, the who wants it more bowl is what I should be calling this thing, a night game. But hey, how about it? Steven, Florida is favored, even though Kentucky just won their first conference game. This is a wacky one. This is a weird series where Stoops had a lot of success over Napier, and that's a big reason why Napier's no longer there. But Florida looked good last week. What's your thoughts on this one?
Mike, I think the series is kind of the first thing that jumps out to me, because this series was dominated by Florida for so long. And then Kentucky has won, I think, with 3 of the last 4, including the last 2 in Lexington. So it's completely shifted away from being extremely dominated by Florida. We had Florida in the bowl projections this week. If they're going to get there, they've got to get this one. There's no path to a bowl game if you don't beat Kentucky coming up. So I think there's still something to play for Florida to try to get to 6 wins. If you're Kentucky, you're trying to finish the season on a high note. Beating Auburn, chance to beat Florida, build some momentum here. Without Dallas Wilson, we'll see about Vernell Brown. Florida's pretty shorthanded in terms of targets for DJ Lagway. Does kind of feel like Kentucky's probably going to have trouble running the ball on Florida's front. So Cutter Boley, a chance against this Florida secondary to maybe push the ball downfield. So a lot of intrigue for me here, Mike. Kentucky's been close at home. Texas, Ole Miss, Florida. Is the tank empty? Is it halfway? Is there still some in there to go on the road and get a win? There's a lot still at stake for Florida with that chance to get to 6 wins and go to a bowl game.
Yeah, and sometimes we overcomplicate these games, Stephen. I was thinking the team that runs the ball effectively, I think they'll probably win this one. And both these teams have shown, their kind of offense runs through running the football, and both their defenses kind of are good at stopping the run. So that's kind of why I pinpoint that. Whoever runs more effectively, I think will win this game.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it feels like that's the way, you kind of correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like the way the past couple of matchups, like at one time Kentucky just really physically manhandled Florida in Lexington. It just feels like that, as basic as it sounds, as boring as it sounds, like physicality, line of scrimmage, whether it's Baugh or McGowan, like which running back has a better day, that team probably ends up winning.
All right, how about Auburn Vanderbilt? And I kind of joked, but not really. This, without Hugh Freeze, probably really helps Auburn because old Hugh, he couldn't beat Diego and Vanderbilt, so we're getting that evil off us. But DJ Durkin, interim coach, thoughts on Auburn first game without Hugh Freeze at Vanderbilt?
It does feel like Auburn could maybe get a little bit of an interim coach bump here. Although it is a little, it's a shame we don't get to see Diego Pavia steal Hugh Freeze's soul one more time, right? They also have like 5 offensive coordinators, so they could just sub somebody in at this point. You got so. I don't know. There's necessarily a minus there by taking away Hugh Freeze. I do think in terms of all seriousness, Mike, I do think Auburn's defense is going to create some problems for Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt's offense. We saw this the last couple of weeks, whether it was Missouri, whether it was the Texas defensive front. Those fronts have been a problem for Vanderbilt. So it wouldn't shock me at all if Auburn creates a lot of problems here. I think the question is going to be, if you're Auburn, is are you going to be able to generate enough offense? And I think Vanderbilt, they match up well with the ability to stop the run. I don't really trust Jackson Arnold or Ashton Daniels to create enough through the air. Maybe the coaching, they can find a way to scratch 20 points here. It wouldn't shock me if this one's closer than the spread, because I do think Auburn's defense and maybe the interim coach bump helps them out here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think you're right. We're going to miss old Hugh in this one. We're going to miss him losing to Pavia one more time. You know what?
Good chance for maybe Diego after the game to say he misses Hugh. That might break the internet, right?
And then, certainly the last and least, Citadel, Ole Miss. I don't expect you to give us too much on Citadel here, but anything you'll be looking for from the Rebels?
Mike, I do have a little bit on Citadel, I'll tell you. They are 4-5 this year. They also run the option. So they're kind of the worst FCS opponents you can schedule. They are top 10 in the FCS in rushing offense. So I say they're the worst kind of opponents you could play. Ole Miss should be able to physically win this game in the trenches, but it's also one of those opponents where you play in the option and the tricky nature of it. It could be a little dicey at times. I think the important thing for Ole Miss is they are on the doorstep of making the college football playoff. Don't let another Washington State thing happen where it's close and you're messing around in the fourth quarter to close the deal. Just take care of business. Get Trinidad Chambliss back on track after an up and down game against South Carolina. Keep everybody healthy. Play some guys to get some snaps in and get ready for Florida and Mississippi State, because this puts Ole Miss at 9-1 if they take care of business. And then they're right there needing to beat one of those last 2 teams to get to the playoff.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be the funniest thing ever if they lost that one after such a good year. But yeah, we know that's not going to happen. I'm kind of interested to see, how long they leave the starters out here. I mean, that's kind of that's kind of sad, but that's kind of what it is for Ole Miss, in my opinion.
I thought so too in that Washington State game, and Washington State made it a lot closer. So, do you think Chambliss has been kind of? I mean, I thought he was a little bit up and down against South Carolina. Don't you think?
Yeah. There are certain limitations to his game. I think that's fair to say. But his mobility really kind of opens it up too. So there's good and bad. But yeah, this is a couple. He gets up for the big games, and then these other ones, not so much. So it is kind of interesting to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think if anything, this is a chance to be a confidence builder before you go into the Florida game. Then you get 2 weeks to get ready for Mississippi State. So a chance to kind of get back on track. I will say one guy that doesn't need to get, any kind of rebound is Kewan Lacey. He's been he was pretty good on Saturday night. So interested to see if Austin Simmons plays a lot. I think if you're Ole Miss, it'd be good to get both of them some reps here on Saturday against an overmatched opponent. So I really, Mike, barring some kind of catastrophic disaster here, this should be one of those games where Ole Miss can basically just pick out what the final score is going to be and how much Chambliss and Simmons split the difference in workload here.
Yeah, you always know it's going to be a rough one when your head coach is out here saying, man, I really hope you fans come on out, appreciate what we got here. These kids deserve a crowd. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we're going to kill this team. Gotcha. But that's just kind of Kiffin code for that. You know what?
It is funny that, there's this game and then there's Florida, which, wants to hire Lane Kiffin. If they want to hire Lane Kiffin, they could just beat Ole Miss and then it helps. But, it is a fascinating kind of stretch of the season for Ole Miss. And after falling short last year, it's like, here it is. It's like, it's on a silver platter. Just take it, get to the playoff. And regardless of what the home crowd, if it's uninspiring or whatever, if Ole Miss just takes care of business the next 2 out of the next 3 weeks, don't lose the Citadel, but take care of Florida. They'll be 10-1. They should be in good shape to make the playoff.
All right, Stephen. Hey, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to cut you off here, let you get the heck out of here. We, as always, appreciate you dropping by and dropping so much knowledge on us. But any final thoughts? And as always, can you plug your social medias and your work before you go?
Absolutely. You can read my work over at athlonsports.com. You can follow me on Twitter at AthlonSteven, Arch Manning apologies accepted there, or on Facebook and Instagram, Stephen LCFB. Mike, a final thought for tonight. Don't let the rankings tomorrow night get your blood pressure up. They're going to change so many times over the next few weeks. Enjoy the ride. November is going to be awesome.
Well, I can promise you one thing, Stephen. I don't know a whole lot, but I know they're going to get mad regardless. So caution goes out to the wind. Shout out JP. Today's shout outs: Vols, Go Big Orange, Cousin JR, Stephen Up, Valhalla Nahara, All Day Trey, Drew Daisy, and Michael Dunlap. Thank you all. Thank you to the legends. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Stephen. We'll be back tomorrow. Roush Hour, Cousin Shane, playoff rankings. We got it locked in, and I've reached out to a number of people to be guests on the show this week. So stay locked in, like, subscribe, share. It doesn't cost you a thing. Really helps the show. But until then, we'll catch you on the next one.
Hey, buddy, this beer's for you, Mike, and Cousin Shane. That SEC podcast loves the Pirate, and the Pirate loves that SEC podcast. Hail State.